Suyong, you want to
Tingyi, are we good with the group photo, Tingyi?
Yes, we have.
We have. Okay, thank you very much, Tingyi.
Thank you very much. It's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks everyone. We will resume the session very soon. I hope you had a good break. Next, we have our colleagues from E2 Open again. All right, they'll be sharing with us on crossing borders seamlessly. I believe the next speaker will be Kelly or Raymond. Raymond, okay. Raymond, yes, please. Raymond.
Barang itu bisa. Terus kontrak. Itu aja begitu kan. Aku kemarin bisa nggak apa-apa.
Raymond, you might be on mute.
Sorry. Okay. So, okay, can you hear me clearly this time? Is it loud enough?
Yes, sir. You're perfect.
That's good. Okay. That's why, I don't know whether I'm on mute. That's why I asked a few questions that no one answered. Okay. Just to introduce myself first. Okay, I'm E2 Open Customer Solution Director. I born and live in Hong Kong, and I've got a more than 26 years working experience, mainly in supply chain management. And in my early career, I worked in an in-house project manager, rolling out ERP and supply chain implementation in different subsidiary company in the world, in US, in Japan, in Europe, etc. And for my recent 12 years, I work in a software company, helping my customer to do SCM digital transformation in different industries. And for my last 3 years, I focus on transportation and global trade management. And global trade management, GTM, is the topic for today. Okay, then let's come to the agenda. I'll first talk about why is...
Raymond,
sorry? Yeah.
Can you share screen again? And then go into...
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So here's the agenda for me today. So I will first talk about why is global trade compliance important and why is it relevant to you. And next, I will talk about what are the global trade compliance rules. For example, HS classification, partner compliance, dual use documents, filing, FTA, duties and tax, etc. Okay, what are these compliance rules? And then I will talk about how to automate the cross-border trade in the export process and also import process. And last, I will do a very short practical use case demo to show you, let's say if you need to export something from Malaysia to Indonesia, what are the compliance rules, etc. So this will be my agenda. Okay. Why is GTM important? Yeah, because global trade is ever-changing compliance regulation for countries. And different countries have different compliance regulations. So most important is these regulations are ever changing. They are changing every day. We have done a survey on the number of changes for this kind of compliance regulation per year. We estimated that there are around 17 millions of changes of these compliance regulation for all the countries in the world. So this is really something difficult to manage. And the second point is that global trade is complex. Okay, you need to coordinate with multiple partners, different time zones, different currencies, and also different languages as well. And they are complicated compliance regulations. For example, for some of these regulations includes, for example, how to classify your product into a code which is understandable by the custom authorities. Who you can sell to? Are you selling to a restricted party for that country? And whether you need to provide a license in order to export or import from the country. Yeah, because some of the product may be military purpose. And also how to file your informations. Yeah, because you need to provide all the information of the product, of your partners, etc., to the custom authority for the way. Okay, so how to file these information? Those are very complicated compliance regulations. And global trade is growing exponentially recently. Okay, we have got a study from McKinsey that up to 2025, we will have more than 70 trillion of global trade shipments, okay, in the world. So as you can see from the graph, it's actually growing exponentially. So we cannot use the manual way to manage it anymore. Okay? It does not work. You have to cope with it in a secure and controlled manner. With the country's compliance regulations, you may be heavily penalized by that custom authority or government. So let's take an example. If you remember about 4 years ago, ZTE is a China's second largest maker of telecom equipment company, and because they sell the product to North Korea and also Iran, so the U.S. government gave them a fine of $1.2 billion. So $1.2 billion can actually make a medium or small size company bankrupt. Okay, so it's a very big penalties, okay, given by the countries or custom authorization if you cannot comply with their compliance regulations. So the fines then will actually make the board take notice on that. And also there's some what we call non-logistic trade costs, okay, because when you need to deal with those classification, license management, maybe tax or fees calculation in the global trade. So you may not have this specialist for doing this. So you may need to hire, or maybe you need to leverage the broker to help you to manage all these global trade stuff, and also you need to pay for them. So the broker fee is also a kind of a non-logistic trade cost that may involve. If you cannot fulfill the compliance regulations, then the shipment may be delayed, and that may lead to, your customer is unsatisfied with that, and also that may impact your program or project operation as well. And we find that the enforcement by the government is becoming stricter and stricter. Okay? In the old days, only the shippers, the importer or exporter are responsible to comply with these rules, and they are accountable for that. And for recent years, we find that the carrier helping to do the transport also have to be accountable for the shipment compliance as well. So it's not a surprise that GTM become a top priority for many companies. Okay, so we have a survey for Aberdeen Group that about 67% of the company think that GTM is their top 3 priority. Okay, about 17% of the company think that GTM is the top 5 priority. So it's quite a high percentage that many companies are aware that GTM is their top priority. However, okay, there's still many companies, even if they know that it is a high priority, but many organizations are still unprepared to manage these global trade in 3 different aspects: in process, in people, and technology aspect. For example, their global trade process is still very manual. Okay, and also they use a very low technology to manage these global trade regulation. For example, using Excel, and also they don't have the required skills specialists to handle these global trade. So this provides a disconnect between their priority and what they're actually doing to manage these global trade. Okay, that's the why. That's what I would like to share with you. Why GTM is important and also relevant to you. Next, I'm going to talk about a little bit detail about the GTM rules. Okay, what are these rules? Because when I talk about the first topic, I mentioned some of the jargon in global trade, like classification, compliance, dual use, etc. So what are these compliance rules? Let's take a look at a typical international global trade scenario with an export country and import country. So usually the exporter will be responsible for all the declaration for exporting the product out of the countries. Okay, and they need to liaise with the custom authorities in terms of license that need to provide to the customs, what are the documents, and also do the filing, the declaration to the customs authority. The importer will be responsible for import that product into that import country, and also they need to deal with the customers as well. Okay, in terms of license and documents, filings, and also the calculation of duties and tax. So this is a typical scenario for global trade, which involve export and import countries, and some of the compliance rules. So first of all, what is product classifications? Okay, yeah, which means that what is being exported. Okay, the product that is going to be exported can be a product, can be a software, can be some intelligence and technical data. The custom authority needs to have a unique code to identify the product. Okay, this is what we call product classification. And this code is usually called HS code. And this HS code is different, okay, in different countries. For example, when you look at the red wine, okay, in Singapore, the HS code for red wine is talking about maybe 10 digits, okay, but in Vietnam, it is just 8 digits. So even for the same product, the HS code, the unique identification for that product category is different for different countries. So what's the use of this product classification? Okay, once you classify that product, the customer will know that, okay, what are the license you need to give to them, what are the duties you need to pay, and also what are the documents you need to submit to customs. So it's an identifications, okay, for the product category. And also you heard something about destination control as well. Okay, this is related to where your shipment is going. Is the shipment going to a section or embargo countries? For example, US impose a section and embargo to North Korea and also Iran as well. So if you have something shipped to this country, you actually violate their compliance regulation, just like the example that I mentioned earlier for EZTE. They will be heavily penalized. So even if you can do the shipment to that country, ship to that country, but it doesn't mean that you can send the shipments to all the parties in that countries, because every country have their own restrict party list. Okay, so when you need to send your shipments to that country, you have to validate the restrict party list to make sure you are not sending your product to these blacklist parties. Okay, the parties may be your customer, maybe your supplier, maybe your consignee, maybe some military end users. So you have to make sure that the party involved in a shipment does not violate the restrict party list of the country. Product dual use. Okay, that means what will they do, okay, with it, with your product. For some product which has two purpose. One is for civilian purpose, and also it can be used for military purpose as well. So you have to know, okay, whether the product is a dual use product. If it is a dual use, most likely you require a license for you to export or import to that country. Like US, they have some code, some coding called ECCN, which is an export control. Okay, they do not allow some technology export out from US to other countries. Okay, because this technology can be for civilian purpose and also for military purpose, like the high-end computer or high-end CPU, etc. So they are called product dual use. And for some product, okay, which has quota as well, like garment. Okay, for the garment export from Vietnam to US, okay, there's a quota requirements there. Okay, that means every year you cannot send more than a number of quota. If you violate that, more than the quota, then you will be penalized as well. Free trade agreement. Free trade agreement is what we call FTA. Okay, it's an agreement set among a few countries for free trade or lower tariff for a list of a trade category. So usually for these countries inside that free trade agreements, they are friendly, they are friend. Okay, so they set this kind of agreement so that they can have a win-win situation that can have a free trade and lower tariff for the specific category trade among the countries in this free trade agreement. And in some situation, they have something called certificate of origin. That means, for example, if you want to import your product to my countries, I need to understand what is the percentage of the components and also raw material of your product is sourced from my country. Okay, let's take example. If it is over 50% of your component is sourced from my country, okay, then you can import your product to my country, okay, for free or for a lower tariff. So as you can see here, okay, the number of trade agreement is increasing. I would say increasing exponentially in the recent year. Okay, that's to promote more trade shipment among the free trade agreement countries, and also the total export and trade agreement in terms of dollar are also increasing as well, both in service, commodities, or manufactured products. Okay. The others terms that you hear quite frequently is the duties, tax, and also fee calculations. Okay, when you import something to a country, usually they will charge you for all duties, tax, or fee calculation, etc. And you can also make use of this calculation to compare your sourcing options as well. For example, you can compare the sourcing option whether, okay, I would like to buy a Canon computer, Canon camera. So this camera you can buy it locally in Malaysia for $500. Okay, but also you can source it from Indonesia for $400. However, when we take into account the duties, tax, and fees calculations, okay, then the cost that you source it from Indonesia may be jumped to $550. So if that's the case, it will be more sensible to buy it locally in Malaysia. However, as I remember, there's an ASEAN free trade agreement, okay, for the Southeast country as well. So the duties may be able to lower to 50. Okay, some of the portion can be waived. So if that's the case, then it's the total become 450s. That means it will be more sensible to source it from Indonesia. Document determinations. Okay, they are the documents which are required to submit to custom authority. For example, declaration forms, invoice, packing list, etc. And also a license certificates. These are the documents which are required, okay, to submit to customs for doing the import. And you need to do the custom filing as well. When you got all the documents, and you have classified your product, and when you got all the validation for the restrict parties, okay, then you need to submit all this information to custom authorities. You may rely on custom broker to help you to do so, but that may involve a fee. And also, you can also submit directly to custom authority. For some of the countries' authority, they have already got the capability to accept a interface to submit all these filing information to them. So if your application supports this, you can actually leverage this interface by passing the custom broker. Okay, up to now, I just want to check any questions that you would like to ask before I move on. Okay, I see two questions. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, in the HS code will also determine whether cargo will go to green or red line. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, because the HS code, as I mentioned, is an identifier. Okay, it will tell you whether your cargo can go to that country or not. Okay, we call it is a kind of import control. In my short demonstration, I will show this as well. I will show a product which has import prohibition, okay, to Indonesia. Next question is from Rina. As far as I understand, the assignment to red, yellow, green line depends on the risk profile defined by the national agents. The HS code will be one of the key attributes. Yeah, there are also additional variables like consignee, imported goods, country of origin, from which the combination will be used by the determine the color line. Well, you are correct. So different countries have different way to manage this. But the fundamental is still the same. That means they will check against the product itself, whether it is valid to import to that country. And also they will check the the partner, the consignee, the shipper, okay, whether you can actually ship into Indonesia, and also check the country of origin and sometimes the country of manufacturer as well. So they check all this information, okay, then finally they will come up with a risk, okay. So the fundamental is the same. They need to check all these things before they come up with risk. So you're right on that. Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I have, and there's one more. In addition to ASEAN Free Trade Agreement for intra-ASEAN, some country may have a duty waiver for good during disaster. How can this regulation be put into a dashboard or control tower for use in the trade? Well, in my this is a good question. In my presentation, I will also show you something about what we call the GTM control tower. Okay. That control tower can actually see the compliance checking status in different countries. So you have the visibility of this compliance status as well in all these countries. Okay, so I will cover that in my presentation. Okay, seems that there's no more questions. Okay, then let's come to the next topic. How to automate the cross-border trade, okay, for export and also for import control process as well. Okay, how can we automate? So first of all, you need to have a software application, okay, no doubt. However, by just have an application, a software application is not enough. You need to have the global trade content, okay? The trade content includes the compliance rule that I have just mentioned, the product classifications, license requirement, restrict party list, custom document list, tax-free calculation formula as well. For all these, we call it global trade content. So you need to have an application, okay, together with the trade content to help you to automate the cross-border trade. So both of them are required. So let's talk about the global trade content first. You can see some animations, okay, some people getting the compliance regulation and then put to a machine and then digitalize, and then maybe store it in a database. So for all this data, okay, it may be documents, land cost formula, HS classification, import and export control, license, and also restrict party list. Okay, these are what we call content. So in order to have a global trade content database, you need to have a global team, okay, to turn all these legal context data into digitalized format, which can be consumed by your applications. So this content have to cover all the countries. Okay, as I mentioned, different countries have different trade content rules, and also it has to take care of the local language as well. For example, HS classification. Okay, some country may have their local language attached to that, documents in local language, and also the restrict party. The party name may be in the local language as well. So you need to have a global team to do this. But in most of the situation, our customer, no customer will build a team to do this. Yeah, they will always rely on service provider to provide them this trade content together with the application. Okay. When we come to the applications, I separate it into export and also import. Okay, for doing export, your systems, your application have to leverage the master data. For example, your product master. You should have your product classified before the shipment. Okay, so then you got the HS code. And also for partner compliance as well, okay, which may be your customer master, your supplier master, and you need to screen this master before you do the shipments for all the transactions to make sure there's no violation of the partner compliance. And you need to manage the license as well, okay, because for some product, which may require to have a license before you can do export and import. And document determinations, okay, based on the situation of different shipments, you may have different documents that you need to submit it to the customer. Integrate export declaration filing, which is the filing capability to custom authorization. And also, exception management is also important as well, because you may have thousands of shipments every week, okay? So you may not be able to look at every shipment to see whether they comply with the regulation or not. So you need something which is called exception management. That means you just look at those exceptions, okay? That means those shipments which has compliance issues. Okay, you won't look at those shipments which has no problem. You only look at those shipments which have exception. Then you base on the exceptions to match that shipment to make sure that it comply with the compliance regulations. This is the also a typical flow for export control process that you may have to handle your export control process. So we start with the shipment, and then we validate the product to get the HS code or ECCN, okay? And you need to have the classification database, okay? That can help you to classify. And you have to screen the parties in the shipments, okay, of which you need to leverage the restrict party list, the blacklist, and you need to screen for the destination. For example, you need to know whether the destination is a embargo or a session country. And when you check the product end use, okay, you may require to have some license. Okay, the system should be able to help you to automatically find out whether you need a license or not, and then you have to apply your license can exist in your license management and apply it to that and then submit it to the customs for filing. So this is a typical export control process. Okay, for doing product classification, okay, if you are not a specialist, you may find it difficult to do the classifications. For example, okay, you just know that the product is a chemical, calcium chloride. Okay, how do I know what their product classification is? Okay, the system should be able to, based on the description you enter, and then come up with some proposed classification, okay, which is related to calcium chloride, and then give you some confidence level whether it is high, medium, or low. In such, that can help you to do the classification easily. In fact, it relies on some AI or machine learning as well. And also, it has to support multiple languages as well. As I mentioned earlier, the partner name may not be published, may be published in English, then you need to translate into local language, or maybe the restrict party list is in local language, then you need to translate into English as well, so that you can do the screening. So multi-language support is also important. Okay, after we finish the export, then we come to import management. Again, for import, you need to leverage your master data as well, which is your product master, and then your supplier or customer master, okay, for doing the screening. And again, you need to have to manage the license as well, whether your goods can be imported to that country. And one thing which is different from export management is the calculation of the correct VAT, duties, and fees, etc. Okay, the system should be able to help you to calculate it based on the HS code. And the last one is you must have the custom filing capability to custom authorities. So this is the typical import process. So you start with a shipment, and then classify the product, restrict party screening, and also for the product whether you need a license or not. And then it can help you to calculate the tax, duties, and fees, and whether you can leverage the free trade agreement to waive the duties or not. And then you have two ways to submit to customs. You can do direct filing, okay, if you are able to interface all this data to custom authority directly, and the custom authority support that as well. The other way is through a broker package. You send all the information to a broker, and then they help you to submit to customs. So for these two routes, eventually you will got a custom entries, okay, coming back from custom authorities. So this is the what we call the GTM, control tower, okay, in Open, okay. The look and feel is similar to the control tower that Kelly has just shown it to you. You got a map, you get some KPI. Okay, the idea for the GTM control tower is that it allows you to see the compliance checking status for all the shipments in different countries, whether it is export or whether it is export, or import or export. So as you can see here, from the map, you can actually drill into different countries to see what's the status for your import or export shipments, okay, whether it has restrict parties hold or dual product use hold, or under other section or embargo holds for each of your countries. And you can click on that, and then the system will actually show the details of the shipments and also show you other KPI as well. So this is for export. For import, as I mentioned, for import, you need to calculate the tax duties as well. So for the one of the page for the GTM control tower is for the import. It helps you to calculate how many tax or duty that you pay to that countries, okay, in a particular period of time. So you can have the informations by looking at this dashboard. The other one is what we call the FTA, free trade agreement. Okay, the GTM control tower for free trade agreement. It helps you to have a quick visibility on all the estimate duty saving, saving by destination, origin, saving by FTA, etc. Okay, so that you can have a quick visibility on all this. So the idea for this GTM control tower dashboard is to give you the high-level visibility on all the GTM activities in different countries of your company. And the most important is you can easily drill down into each countries to see what's the status and to see the savings and also all the other KPI that occur in that country as well. Okay, this will be my last line. For the next generation global trade management, okay, that systems, that application should be help you to plan, optimize, and execute your global trade shipments, and also it can help you to streamline the cross-border transaction to reduce your cost of goods and ensure compliance. And it can also give you up-to-date trade content information as well. So we have some figures from our customers. Okay, usually what they can achieve is they can achieve saving on tax and duties. Okay, by leveraging the FTA, they can also help you to lower your fines or penalty that are charged by different authority or government. It can help you to improve your margins and also the revenue as well. And of course, it can improve your operational efficiency. So, yeah, before we come to the Q&A, I just want to give you a very short practical use case demonstration on that. So this is not our E2 Open Enterprise application. Okay, our enterprise application is something else that can help you to automate all the checking. But this is just a portal which allows you to see the tax, the license, and also the other information, the documents that are required when you do a shipment from one country to another countries. Let me just give you an example. Let's say I have a container of insecticide that I want to export from Malaysia and import to Indonesia. Okay, and I want to know, okay, what are the land costs? Okay, what are the duties, tax that may be involved? Are there any export and import control when I do this shipment? And what are the documents that are required if I want to do this shipments, import and export from these two countries? So I just need to input a few parameters like import from Indonesia, okay, and then for HS code, I don't know, okay, I can do a search. So let's say I want to do a search, okay, insecticide. Then it will search the HS code database, okay, with the different classification, section, chapters, etc. So the chapters that I'm looking at is the chemical product sections. I can click on that to see the detail, but I do not want to show it now. Okay, so when I go through the list, I can see different HS code, okay, related, and also its related description, and also the duty that will be charged as well. Okay. Again, you can at any time click on these to see the details. So for my case, so which will be this HS code number. Then for the export, okay, which will be coming from Malaysia. Incoterm doesn't matter, just choose anything. Let's see. Okay, that's it. Just click next. There are some other information that I need to input as well, because the freight insurance, sometimes it may be useful for the calculation of the duties and tax as well. Okay, I think that's the all the input I need to put into the systems. So when I click on next, then it will show me all the information that I require. Okay, the first one is the land cost. Okay, these are the input value I have. So when you look at the default duties and tax, okay, you see that there will be a custom duties, which is 10% of CIF. Okay, and then VAT tax as well, 10%. Okay, and also the calculation. Import tax as well, 7.5%. And you got the total land cost, okay, for your shipments. However, as I can see from this, there are a lot of free trade agreement that I can leverage. Okay, some of them seems to be a lower custom duties. This is a 6%. This is a 8%, etc. And some of them I think is ready to ask. Okay, which is some of them of which the duties is 0. Okay, 0% of CIF. And for export control, okay, if I export from Malaysia to Indonesia, there's no embargo accession. And for insecticide, for this HS code, there's no prohibition and also license as well. No quota, no other control, all green. Okay. When we go to import control, you see that there's prohibitions, okay, applied to this product. So I can drill down a little bit to see the detail. Okay, what are these prohibitions? So the control party is the Ministry of Trade. Okay, and the scope is organic, gluten, controlled by stockhand conversion, etc. And then there's another control party, which is the Ministry of Trade. Okay, I can see that, yeah, the scope is some of them is related to hazardous waste controlled by Basel Convention, etc. So by seeing this information, you knew that there are some prohibitions for importing this product. And the last one is the document as well. As I mentioned, different shipment, you may need to have different numbers of documents that are required to submit to customs, which includes export documents and also import document as well. So let me just have a quick. Let me just choose one. To be honest, I'm not the expert on trade content for Indonesia. I see that there's a particular declaration form that I need to fill in for this shipment. I click on that, and it can actually show me the original form, okay, for import declarations. So for this shipments, then I would know that I have to fill in all these export form and also these import form as well, in order to submit it to the custom authority for these. So, okay, it's just a very quick and then demonstration. And I see that when I start the demonstration, there are many chats coming up. So maybe let's answer the questions coming from the audience. Let's see. Okay. Okay. The questions from Alan. Okay. In addition to ASEAN Free Trade Agreement for ensuring if not all countries may have a duty waiver for human goods during disaster, how can this be put into a dashboard control tower for use? This one I have already answered already. Yeah. In fact, our trade content will have all the informations for these rules. Okay, if it is waived for humanitarian goods, okay, that will be waived for certain for these situations. Okay, based on the extra scope. Every country have the rights to impose duties to different types of commodities. When a country with the update, approve, ban, or restrict certain commodities, they global central repository for such information. That's a good question from Kelvin. Yeah, as you can see from my demonstration, it's actually a portal that you can see all the information about these, global trade content. So it's a kind of central repository maintained by us, by E2O. So for that portal, in fact, you can always see the latest informations for the content trade informations. If it is changed, if it is updated, then we will change it and update it accordingly in this trade content database. The next question is from Harlanson. Okay, for the case of the same item that has different HS code between countries, which codes will we use? In the case, same item that has different HS code. Okay, so this is why I mentioned the export and import scenario, because when you export from a country, you use the export country HS code. So when you do the import, then you use the import country HS code for the declaration. So these two codes are different, okay, when you do the export and import. The next question is, Dana, we have information on this reparation waiver of visibility. I don't have, okay, so maybe I need to come back to you on this. So as far as I understand is that it is that product is related to humanitarian, then the control or tax will be waived on that. Okay, so I don't have as I mentioned, I'm not the trade content expert on Southeast Asia, so I can bring it back and then I'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, actually, Raymond, I believe like Gaynor, the Giuseppe from NUS here, I believe the Gaynor was asking Harlan if he happened to have such information. It was not for you.
Okay, no problem. Then I will bring it back and then I will come back to you on this. Thank you. Next question is from Angie. Once export copy from Indonesia to Japan, we must know the HS code of the destination country. That's right. And include it in the official salary document in Indonesia so that the process and destination is smooth. If the same item, each country is different. That's right. Yeah, they are different. Yeah, different country have different HS code. And you need to do the classification. Next questions from Thomas. Preferred HS are the same in almost all countries. That's right. You're right. For the HS code, the first 6 digits is always the same for all the countries in the world. Okay, but they may have the 7 and 8 digit or even 9 to 10 digits, depend on their local requirements. The codes are being updated every couple of years. Many countries are updating their country to start with version. It can be that one of their country, but update later. We have seen that in the past. Okay, thank you. Your comments. 2 more questions from Woody. whether the GTM control tower will displace the existence of custom brokers, because in the system of exporter and importer, they can directly relate it to transporter with displace. You mean displace, right? The existence of custom brokers, because in the system of exporter, they can relate it to transporter. I don't quite sure what it means. Is Puti here?
Would you like to clarify a little bit further the question to Mr. Raymond?
Thank you, Puti.
Okay, Mr. Raymond. If I as exporter, we can direct access in the system. So we don't need a custom broker. So where is this position of custom broker in the system? This is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think your suggestion is very good as well. Yeah, in the control tower, in fact, we can put the custom broker in the tower as well, so that you can see the ongoing status of that custom broker, right? To see what are the shipments they are handling, whether they submitted to filing as well, what's the status, is it coming back, reject, etc. Yeah, that's good questions. Yeah, we do support that, and be able to show the custom in a custom broker status, so that you know the status of that, whether it is submitted, reject, or have been approved. Thank you for the question.
Yes, allow me actually. I think Gaynor from AHA has some comments on this. Gaynor, please.
Yeah. Sorry, can you say again?
Gaynor, we are unable to hear you, unfortunately.
I'm so sorry. I just set up a monitor, so I'm struggling with controls. First of all, thank you, Kelly, and our current speaker, Raymond, for this really very informative discussion. So I just would like, I'm very happy to see a lot of participants today. I'm Gaynor Tanyang. I'm working with the NUS on this whole project. I'm with the AHA Center. So we envision this project not to replace any system. What we are trying to do is integrate the different stakeholders. We're not even building a system for customs procedure facilitation. But what we really envision is when there's a disaster. So this is from AHA Center perspective and NUS. Of course, the applications that are being presented by our partners here might be relevant to you. Do grab the opportunity to discuss this further with the partners. But for us, NUS and the AHA Center, our vision is to develop this control tower to facilitate faster, scalable humanitarian response in the region. So don't worry, we are not going to replace any system or require, but hopefully all of these initiatives will really contribute to a more resilient and responsive disaster response in the region. Thank you so much. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now come to the last question. Who will input those data and information, the exporter or importer? So it depends on what information you mentioned. If you are talking about the trade content rule, so this information should be maintained and input by the service provider. But when you are talking about the shipments information, the shipment information can actually coming from your transportation management system, so that you don't need to re-enter it again in the global trade management systems. So it just depends on what the data you mentioned. Okay. Okay. That's all the questions. Any more questions that you would like to ask in the GTM area?
I see one, see that Thomas has raised his hand.
Yes. Okay, I have a question. So the customs offices in the different ASEAN countries, they have different systems. Yeah, so Laos and Cambodia has the Asekuda system, Thailand has their own system, Myanmar has the MAX system. Is your GTM system integrated with these? Yeah, because of course I have the search for the HS codes there. Can I do that through your system so that I don't need to log into the different country systems, so I have one portal for all of them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you're right. Different countries have a different custom systems at this moment, and we have the capability to interface to different countries' custom system based on the situation that they allow us to do so, and they have already got an integration which is available for us to connect to. So it depends countries by countries. So if that countries have already got an interface which allow us to do the filing directly with the customs, then we are able to do so. If not, then we still need to depends on some custom brokers to help you to do the declaration as well.
Yeah, okay. We will need the customs brokers anyway, because customs will allow only people who are licensed customs brokers. Because, of course, in this short time, you gave a brief overview, but customs clearance is very, very difficult. So the actual declaration must be done by a licensed broker who has been trained in this. I have another question here. We have the ASEAN single window now in the phase of implementation. Some countries have it completely implemented, others not yet. Are you part of that? Are you integrated with the ASEAN single window?
ASEAN single window, right? Yeah, I need to check it back. Yeah, I'm not sure this one whether we have already got the integration or not. But I need to check this. I'm not sure. I cannot give you an answer right now.
All right, thank you.
So, Dr. Fernandez.
Yes,
Dr. Fernandez, we do have. I noticed in our catalog of products, we have a denotation for ASEAN. So I'm going to respond to you that I believe we already have that.
Okay, good news.
But we'll double check on it.
Yeah, we need to double check that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think very good. We have got a lot of questions, and I'm sure you are interested in this topic. Okay, thank you very much.
Raymond, before you go, I believe there is one last question from Rina from AHA Centers that she just raised her hand. Rina,
okay.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Raymond, for the very comprehensive presentation, and Giuseppe for the presentation. I just wonder, this is a question actually mostly for the NUS. In the control tower that we are developing right now, I think somehow the CIQ process has to take into considerations as well, because this will apply to the delay of the shipments if the delay is due to the clearance for the cargo, whether it will be exported or not.
Because, that's right.
Yeah, if we don't take into consideration, it is different when during the emergency response, because during the emergency response, waiver will be issued directly based on experience with the 10 ASEAN member states, depending on the declarations of the affected states for receiving an international assistance. Definitely a waiver will be followed. But for the responding, procurement during the peacetime, during the non-disaster phase, this somehow has to be included in the control tower.
That's right. Yeah, global trade hold in different countries may also impact the shipment arrival time as well. and also the delivery due time. So you are absolutely right. So in fact, this GTM control tower also integrate with our control tower as well in this aspect. So just in case if it was on hold, then you can also check whether it will have any impact to your inventory as well. Okay, how's the shipment delay will impact your inventory status, etc. So that's also part of our control tower, which can be done for you. And when you look at this dashboard, in fact, this dashboard can be further configured or set up, which can align to your expectations, right? So it's flexible. I just show you some of the out of the box dashboard which is available at this moment. But in fact, you can configure more, which fulfill your needs, and also we have also other dashboard as well. Thank you for your question, Lina.
Yeah. A follow-up question. Are you also going to put kind of like a demo rates that may apply for the shipper or the consignee because of the delay as well? Because we recently just had an experience for demo rates when we export things from Jakarta to the Philippines. So it will be good also to show so the consignee will aware that this is the cost they have to pay due to the delay of the clearance.
That's a good suggestion as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I got one last
yeah, please feel free to ask, Dr. Robert.
Yeah, so just, I noticed that when you were doing the dashboard, you had to enter things manually, yeah? But I'm assuming that if you, in the control tower, if you wanted to import some things and you had a long list, that you wouldn't have to do it for each one, you could actually do an automated search. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Searching is also supported in the control tower as well. Maybe you search for the shipment number, and you can actually drill down into that shipments that you want to see. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robert.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
We got one more from Thomas. You wanted to say something, Thomas?
And from Gaynor as well. I can see.
And from Gaynor. Yeah. So we'll go first. Thomas, since I saw your hand first, maybe then Gaynor. Yeah.
Yes, but mine was a follow-up question on yours actually. Do you have full shipment tracking in this GTM system? So are you connecting with the shipping lines and the airlines so that we can see there as one portal, where is my shipment now?
And I believe Mr. Thompson, so would you like, or Mary, would you like to take that question? Because I believe yeah.
No, we have the ability to be able to through not just through global trade but through our logistics portals to be able to have the ability to see the milestones and shipment tracking, etc. So that is something that we have in our applications that's available. Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Last question from Dana. Good to see you. Dana?
Multiple desktops. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Bob. Actually, my question is for the rest of the participants, in particular, the ASEAN member states, as well as the other stakeholders who are here, whether you are a supplier, logistics, a transporter, warehouse manager. My question is, during a humanitarian response scenario, whatever humanitarian response, what do you see are the benefits of this system, and what do you see are the challenges putting up this system? And just type it in the chat box. I don't think we will not have time to get them, go through them. But definitely, we are building on your ideas. As we think about, there is no system yet, actually. This whole training series is a way for us to imagine what the system will look like, what are the needs. That's why your inputs are very important to us. How will this system be useful for you? So do contribute your ideas, your answers. I've just added a third question. So first is, what is here the benefits? Second, what are the challenges? And how is this control tower will help you, particularly during a humanitarian response scenario? That is all, and we will really appreciate your inputs. Back to you, Yong, Giuseppe, and Bob. Thank
Okay,
you.
I just want to add, we talked a lot about, and those were excellent points, Susugena, and I think that's the objective of any workshop is to get to get the feedback. Yeah. I also want to add to that, so what you said, Susugena, because if you're using a control tower already, what are you using? Now that's something extremely important. And what does it need more or less to what you're doing? Yeah. What's your experience with the control tower? I think other piece that I think it wasn't explicit in this few hours we had on control tower, and we're going to dig deeper into this. If you had an established supply chain, and the supply chain, you knew all your stakeholders in your supply chain, then it's fairly easy to actually integrate them together in the control tower. But what happens if somebody wants to come in and it's across multiple supply chains, like what Susugena mentioned? So if they are intersecting supply chains and you want to come into a supply chain and then you want to leave it and you want to come in again, what are some of those requirements that you have? Now, so many of the control towers that are in existence today, somebody's got to own it, yeah, somebody's got to maintain it, yeah. But if this control tower was being used on a neutral intersecting supply chains, then what would you desire? I think these are things that we need to discuss. And so we have a little time now, and I kind of think that it's not only aimed at each open, but actually just to set the scene. So we have a little time before lunch. So what are your views on what was said by Dana and what I just said? So how many of you are using your control tower, and what's your experience with it? And is it, who owns it? What's the management across multiple supply chains? So let's give you 1 or 2 minutes to think about this and to kind of respond. And you can respond in chat, or you can actually, just put your hand up, and Giuseppe will help me to see whose hand is up. So what's your views here? Because it's with all these workshops, it's actually important, for us to get the feedback, because that's why the companies like Open are with us today. And so when we can do this, we can actually come up with something better as a group, if there is something better. So thank you for putting those up, Sister Sugena. So I think these are some of the things. So please, we got a little time before lunch. So we got about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then you can have a longer lunch. But I think these are essential points to you being on board and not just listening, but to share your opinions, because your opinions matter. So please, who wants to start us rolling? Otherwise, I'll pick a few people whom I know. Let me ask my good friend Thomas here, start us rolling on this, Thomas here, because while I pick a few others whom I know have some.
Okay, how would a control tower be useful in a humanitarian setting? In a humanitarian setting, what I have, okay, I have different phases, right? I have preparedness. I want to know where is what do I have on hand, what is coming, what is in the pipeline. And then I have the emergency phase, and this is where it becomes really interesting because I need to know not only what I have on hand, but where is it going to? How do the new supplies come in? And yeah, supplies here, supply chain management is very, very important because I can waste or save a lot of money by knowing or not knowing what I have, where it is, when it will arrive. I can support the teams on the ground when I tell them, okay, tomorrow you will receive all these items, then they know they can do planning. So I believe this control tower is very helpful. It will facilitate both the supply chain managers' work in a humanitarian setting as well as the teams on the ground, and they really need it. That's what I think.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for getting it rolling. Indra, so maybe you want to, to voice it out so that the rest could hear you too. So, Indra?
Sorry, Mr. Robert.
Yes, please go. So, because you got a nice thing that you're asking, so please, yeah.
Thank you for your time. First, I can use my camera because
That's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. My opinion about using the system with the integrate the data, I think is useful and very easy part to us because we can make a simplify about regulation about condition, term and condition in one way. But in other hand, we can make sure about how to make a other participant use or manage the control tower, because if they manage the control tower in one hand, I think that there is an inequality for that. I think it's to be discussed, Mr. Robert.
Yes. I think that is you see why I wanted you to speak, Indra, because what you ask is an important. Even when we have the non-humanitarian scenario, one of it is actually if I had to go out and to get a control tower to manage my supply chain, it might be so prohibitively expensive, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have the training to do this. But if there is a control tower out there that's made available, it would help the smaller companies. It would help the individual actors within a humanitarian supply chain and level up, yeah, because they will all have access to the great technologies and advantages that the control tower could give. Yeah, so that's the idea. So when it comes down, it could be owned by everybody and nobody. Yeah, so it is actually something that we're exploring and saying it could help companies or organizations level up, and that would reduce the inequality, or it would level playing field. Yeah. So now, are you willing to share your data for the greater good? Yeah, because you don't have to share all your data, but what data are you willing to share to get back the advantages that you actually need from the control tower? And I think that is extremely important point. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for raising that. We also have Maria, right? So will you speak up, Maria? Because I think this is another important point. It'll save you typing it out, because I think you have put in some great points there. So Maria, please.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Maria Jolim from the Philippines. I'm with the Air Force Reserve, and I'm also involved in some humanitarian work, especially after Yolanda.
Yes.
So I see that the system would help in making resourcing more efficient. But then I'm wondering how costly it would be to maintain it, especially like what I pointed out in number 2, that if we have to subscribe to it or be part or have access to the system, it would be costly for us to maintain because that's how we are experiencing it now in the Philippines. There are a lot of good technology available here, but it's so expensive. Only the private entities can use them.
So what would be your desired list? So what would be your wish list, Mary?
I'm hoping that if ever there would be a disaster, so this would be an ASEAN thing. Maybe ASEAN or a part of ASEAN can maintain it for all of the countries in ASEAN.
Yeah.
And then if ever the government requires access or need for the control towers or for the system, we can just ask for it.
Yes.
Is
So
that
what you're saying
possible?
is, Maria, it could be like it could be, and I'm going to put Rina and Padena on the spot. It could be at the AHA Center.
Maybe.
Actually, you could be accessing the data to what you want, or they could share the dashboard with you. Is that correct?
Yes. Maybe we can share with the cost, but maybe it could be just 1/10 of the cost if
Yes.
the Philippines would be the only one maintaining it. So if AHA would maintain it, we can only pay 1/10 of the cost
Yes.
every year.
Yes. No, that's a good point, and I think this is where we want to go with this. And then you would be happy to share your data into the system and to access the dashboards that came out in the system, right?
Yes, yes.
That's wonderful because that's the kind of thing that we want to hear. And I think you said it you articulated it very well. So
Thank you.
because we will be coming into, as we go along the workshops, we'll be coming into smaller groups where we're going to be discussing this because that's where we need you. Okay, please join that group.
Thank you, thank you.
Some excellent points of coming across, which is driven by what our center said, and I think this is great. Any others? Because we want to hear from you. We heard from sort of the AHA Center. We heard the NDMOs. What about some of those who are service providers or suppliers? I mean, what is your perspective? So can we hear from some of those in the transportation and service providers, or even from industry? I mean, this is also urban, so logistics. But because how far should this control tower actually go? Should it go from country to country? That means exit point in one country to entry point in another country, or should it go within country down to the last mile? I mean, what's your view?
This is Kelvin. I'm not sure you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Kelvin,
yes. Good to see you, Kelvin. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. I'd like to just chip in 2 points to your last question pertaining to technology, also the perspective, right, okay, to really how do you kind of leverage on what's available so that it is not so prohibitive. Okay, very much aligned to what Maria has mentioned. Okay, just 2 points of view, right? Now, first and foremost, a control tower or any kind of collaboration system, okay, usually will go through some sort of a life cycle. Okay, they tend to start more rudimentarily, okay, and then it could progress into something that's very intelligent and forward-looking. So first and foremost, the idea of a control tower is necessarily prohibitive. That's because you are asking the hairdresser whether you need a haircut or not, right? Okay, so if you know what I mean, is if you ask the guy who has got a control tower and ask whether he can be doing 10 things, it will do 10 things, right? But there's another way of looking at it, right? Okay, is from a functional angle itself, you can slowly build up. Now I've seen, and later I'll touch on it, right? Okay, when I go through my session, is when you look at control tower as using a combination of both technology and just sheer collaboration between people to make it work. So there is a possibility of not always having to think of the most state-of-the-art technology to be able to make it to work, right? So I can touch on that a little bit more in terms of the evolutions of control tower and also command centers. That's the first point of view. The second point of view is a more important one, right? Okay, it's actually the cost of technology. Okay, the days of very complicated system integration is gone. Okay, because of the evolution of honestly, right? Okay, anything from cloud computing to the idea of having data fabrics, right? Okay, to move along a lot of different data types. Okay, two, companies like, for example, E2Open and clearly what used to be Amberwood, right? Okay, they are clearly in the space of also trying to make it into software as a service. So say that the idea of the old kind of integration projects where your systems comes together and it creates a very huge system, right? Okay, that needs to be maintained long term and also very hard to integrate, right? Okay, I think there's a possibility to re-examine that assumption because honestly, right, I believe that things has gotten a lot simpler.
Excellent points there. Again, and I kind of urge you, I mean, so many of you, we have like, let me just check, we have like almost 160 on the call, right? And so many of you are quite quiet, and you would know that if I was in front of you in a class, I would walk up to you and ask you these questions directly. Yeah, I kind of think that if you're a little bit uncomfortable in actually saying, because what is it that you would wish out of a control tower? Then please, I urge you, put it in the feedback form or drop us an email, because as we go through the workshops, we'll be able to answer these and to try to come up with a blueprint, or come up with something, a digital transformation roadmap, if you want to use the big words here. So I urge, those who haven't, spoken up, speak up as you go through these workshops, because this is what we want to hear. What you just heard right now is this speakers are, sharing good material with us to provoke the discussion such that we can have some time to find out what is it that you would really want to see in a control tower up to now, right? What is it that you would really want to see? What is it that you are trying to tackle? And you saw those questions from Gaynor, and you saw me raising these points. Please, I urge you, put this in your forms, because then you know that you are influencing the future design. And there are all these top companies helping us to come up with what should be the future. Not to say, I have a control tower, and is it going to meet your requirements? No, it won't. So I think you need to delve deeper. So let's take one or two more questions. I know I can see my good friend Harlan Hale on the call. Harlan, any good points from you as always?
Excuse me? I didn't quite hear that.
Yeah, I can hear you, Harlan. Good morning.
Yeah, what was your question again?
I was saying, what can you contribute to the discussion? And I know you can on control towers. What do you see is required? And, we can see where the discussion is going. We heard from Maria and saying what she needed. What's your view?
I think what's important is being able to connect and involve, suppliers and customers, and in this case, customers being, disaster management agencies, first responder organizations, NGOs, people, those organizations that are going to be on the humanitarian side are going to be the customers, buying and sourcing equipment, supplies, and being able to use that to deal with and support the affected population.
being able to link them with the suppliers, the people that have these commodities, these goods, services, equipment, and so all within that same thing. I think from the Philippines, the comment about, being able to access a system that might be centrally run in the ASEAN region or whatever, as and when, it's required, either for routine purchases, like to replenish stockpiles every year, or for those emergency purchases, like when what you have in your stockpile is not enough to meet the needs and you need to bring on extra quick, additional supplies quickly. That's when hooking those customers, the users, disaster responders, with the suppliers of goods and services, and being able to see, okay, what's available, how quickly can I get it, how quickly can they deliver it to where I need it. That's going to be important. And I think within that, as you're working across countries, that's where things like the ASEAN single window, bringing in and understanding most countries do have some kind of provision in their customs and importation for, humanitarian assistance or disaster relief when it's applicable, when a disaster's covered, and they're different in each country, but that needs to be brought into the system as well, and maybe even harmonized across the countries, like there's an effort to try to harmonize, the normal commercial trade within ASEAN. There needs to be some idea to try to harmonize and understand what the humanitarian, customs and importation and, process and system is as well, from one country to another. Not every country is going to have or produce everything it needs in a disaster all at the same time. I think a good case in point now is, the supply of oxygen cylinders. That's something that all of a sudden everybody needs a lot of at the same time all over the world. And a normal commercial supply, they're just not there. So I mean, knowing where these commodities are, where you can get them, whether it's even feasible, to get them in the quantity you need to, is good information. And that's where the control tower, as part of the total system, plays a really key function.
So it's a bit like what we talked about, Harlan, about e-commerce too, right? So it's the same thing. Yes. Like, once you get like a platform that can serve the region, then as Maria said, is that it's 1/10 of the cost to each member state, but actually it's 100 times the value. So it's not the cost, it's the return on that cost and all that investment here. And I think this is very excellent points, Harlan. Thank you. Hey, I want to turn to our friends, other friends from Indonesia and Thailand. I know I was talking to one of them this morning about, he was saying about the digital platform for the country. Kind of like, is there going to be a digital control tower? Manfred from Thailand, the Logistics Association, I believe.
Yes, Prasha from Thailand.
Yes, please. I was talking to you this morning. I loved what you said. So please, would you elaborate on that?
Yes. We try to launching the project called National Digital Trading Platform. It looks like control tower that we are mentioned this morning. Which I have a question that how can we cooperate and use your control tower application for short our launching time, because we want to launch within next year.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Maybe the question is come to how long to establish or start this application.
Yeah.
And maybe the second question is in terms of the global trade management, what is not in the scope of control tower? I look at you cover everything, harmonize, import, export contents, and what is not in the scope. And the second is we are looking for the analytic level, and what deep of the analytic level of the control tower. It can deep to the prescriptive analytic, or just the prescriptive and prediction. This is my question.
Yes, and I think just to answer those so briefly, and as we go along, you'll see that it gets deeper, because in the subsequent workshops we talk about the other components of a digital stack. Yeah. So we'll talk about digital twin, we'll talk about e-commerce, we'll talk about quantum computing, we'll talk about all the technology stack. Okay. But yes, collaboration is key. Drop me an email, yeah, and I'll share with you what we have in mind. Okay. So then the other piece is what can we do and can I not do? And I think this is where I was trying to encourage audience, because we don't want it to do everything. Yeah, because if it does everything, it will make everybody kind of happy, but it will stay at that level and it will get too complex and too detailed. Yeah. So like when I said to Each Open to talk about this morning, they talked about visibility. So visibility was very key. Yeah. Because if we can provide the visibility level, then individual organizations can drill down deeper into what they want, like where is my inventory, where is my shipment, where you can drill down deeper, but let's start with that visibility level, right? Where is everything? Yeah. And then you talked about supply chain analytics, and I think this will come in this afternoon in great detail, and you'll see this. You'll see the dashboards that we're looking at building and things like that. So you'll see this afternoon. So I won't steal their thunder from them, yeah. But this will actually come in. But yes, like what we said earlier, the whole aim of these workshops is to create that collaboration between us. So thank you. You have my email. If not, you have my NUS contacts here. We would love to collaborate here. Okay, and then we'll involve all the organizations that you're listening to. They'll come together to help us to do what we need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to bring you into the discussion this afternoon too. So thank you all. And I think
yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we'll say good night to E2 Open, because it's quite late for them in the US. So thank you, team from E2 Open. Thank you, except for Raymond, who's based in Hong Kong. Okay. But I'll now hand back to Yong, and he'll come on to the arrangements so we can have a little longer lunchtime. Thank you. Yong?
Thank you, Bob. It's almost 1 p.m. now. So as planned, we will have about an hour for our lunch break, and we will come back to the workshop at 2 p.m. All right. So thank you everyone for your very active participation. Enjoy your lunch break. We will see you back here at 2 p.m. in about 1 hour's time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Recording stopped.
you.